I'm Mia, and I'm 21 years old. I recently completed my third year of art college, and I must say that it has been an incredible experience. However, you must understand my background before I get into any of that. I never felt at home in the household where I grew up. Emily, my older sister, was always the obvious favorite of my parents, Tom and Sarah. She has always been a pain in my side and is 4 years older than me. Emily appeared to despise me from the moment I was born. She would ruin my life by teasing me and breaking my things. What about my parents? Oh, they said, laughing it off, that's just how sisters are. However, that wasn't typical. I recall being 14 years old. I thought Jake, a boy at school, was the loveliest thing imaginable, and I had a major crush on him. I would secretly spend hours sketching images of him, keeping them hidden beneath my mattress, where I hoped no one would see. Emily, however, located them. What did she do, do you know? She displayed them for everyone to see by pinning them on the school bulletin board. I can still hear the murmurs, the pointing, and the laughs as I entered the school that day. The entire world seemed to be collapsing around me. Jake approached me, stuttering and seeming uncomfortable. I saw the sketches, Mia. I don't like you that way, even though you're kind. That day, I sobbed as I ran home. When I rushed in the door with tears in my eyes, my parents were in the kitchen. Dad, Mom, I was embarrassed at school by Emily. She discovered my personal sketches. Emily, however, walked in with a smug smile before I could continue. She responded, "Oh, come on, Izzy," using the moniker I detested. It was just mildly enjoyable. It's not my fault that you find jokes offensive. You are aware of what my parents did. They chuckled. In fact, they chuckled. "Sweetie," my mother remarked, wiping away her tears of laughter, "you really need to get over your fragile nature. Emily isn't to blame for your whining." I was ecstatic when I was admitted to our college because of this. It served as my pass to leave that home and escape the continual derision and denigration. The only person who ever truly loved me was my grandmother. She was the one who informed me I had potential and supported my artwork. She insisted on covering my tuition when I was admitted. She said, "Mia, with sparkling eyes, you have a gift. Nobody should be able to convince you differently. I'll see to it that you receive the education you are due." She covered all of my bills for 3 years, including my tuition, supplies, and even a little more for living expenses. However, she became ill just before my last year. I recall holding her weak hand while I sat by her bedside. "I'm so proud of you, Mia, my dear," she replied, gazing at me with those kind eyes. "You'll do amazing things." My parents were standing at the foot of the bed when she turned to face them. "I need you to make me a pledge, Tom and Sarah. Make me a promise that you will cover Mia's last year. She must complete her studies." My parents gave a serious nod. "Of course, Mom," answered my father. "We promise." A week later, Grandma passed away. We learned at the reading of her will that she had bequeathed her jewels to Emily and me, and her house to my parents. Naturally, Emily snatched up the diamond tiara right away. "I'll take this," she declared. "The ring is Mia's." "Izzy, you do realize that she doesn't give a damn about jewelry." She was correct, so I didn't protest. I grabbed the diamond ring and placed it in a bank safety deposit box because I wasn't too fond of jewels. In college, I rapidly established friends. There was Marcus, a gentleman who could create sculptures that left you speechless, and Zoe, a punk rocker with an aptitude for abstract art. My family's drama didn't matter to them. I was just Mia to them. The girl who painted like it was no big deal. Using the moniker I really loved, Zoe stated one day, "Hey, Bella." There's a tattoo parlor downtown looking for someone to draw designs. You ought to submit an application. My parents would freak out if they found out that I worked at a tattoo business, so I was first apprehensive. However, I reasoned that I shouldn't give a damn about their opinions. I applied, and I was surprised to get hired. After looking over my portfolio, the owner, Mike, a muscular man with more ink than flesh, declared, "You're hired, kid." I was making my own money for the first time in my life. I had it, even if it wasn't much. Emily's scornful voice could already be heard when I told my parents and Emily about it. Oh, little Izzy's drawing pictures for thugs now. How adorable. I was a good fit for college life. Determining to make my grandma pleased, I immersed myself into my studies. My work was well received by my lecturers, and I even took home a few of modest prizes. More significantly, though, I was content. The years flew by, and before I knew it, I was finishing up my third year. As the summer break approached, a familiar dread settled in my stomach. I had to go home. I opened the door and stepped into chaos. The living room was full of people, all bustling about with excitement. In the center of it all stood Emily, beaming as she held up a white dress. My mother noticed me first. "Oh, Mia," she said, her smile faltering slightly. "You're home. We weren't expecting you so soon." I stood there, stunned. Emily's getting married. When did this happen? Emily turned to me, her smile turning into a smirk. "Oh, didn't anyone tell you? I guess we've all been so busy with the preparations, it must have slipped our minds." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My own sister was getting married, and no one had even bothered to tell me. "Who's the lucky guy?" I managed to ask, trying to keep my voice steady. "This is Richard," Emily said, pulling forward a tall, handsome man I hadn't noticed before. "Isn't he dreamy?" Richard gave me a polite smile and extended his hand. "Nice to meet you, Mia. I've heard so much about you." I shook his hand, wondering what exactly he heard, knowing Emily probably nothing good. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of excited chatter downstairs. Emily was holding court at the breakfast table, surrounded by our parents and a couple of her bridesmaids. As I listened to their conversation, I learned that Emily had broken up with her previous boyfriend at our parents' insistence. Apparently, he'd been mixed up with some dangerous crowd. "Thank God you listened to us, sweetie," Mom said, patting Emily's hand. "Richard is such a better match for you, and his family is so well off." I couldn't help but roll my eyes. Of course, that's what they cared about. "Speaking of Richard," Emily said, turning to me with a smirk, "he's taking me out to dinner tonight." Not that you'd know anything about that, right? Is Izzy still haven't found a boyfriend? They all laughed, and I gripped my coffee mug tighter, willing myself not to cry. Some things never change. As the days passed, I tried to stay out of everyone's way. I spent most of my time in my room, sketching and counting down the days until I could leave. But one evening, I couldn't avoid the family dinner. We were all seated around the table when Emily dropped her bombshell. "I've decided to wear Grandma's tiara for the wedding," she announced. "It'll look perfect with my dress." "Oh, that's a wonderful idea," Mom exclaimed. Emily wasn't done. "But you know what would make it even better? If I had a matching piece to go with it, like, oh, I don't know, a ring." I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth. I knew exactly where this was going. Mom's eyes lit up. "Oh, that's right. Mia, didn't Grandma leave you a ring?" I nodded slowly, a sick feeling growing in my stomach. "Well, there you go," Emily said, clapping her hands together. "Izzy, you'll let me borrow the ring for the wedding, won't you?" I put down my fork. "Borrow? For how long?" Emily laughed, a sound that sent chills down my spine. "Oh, silly. I mean, you'll give it to me for keeps." But Grandma left that to me. I protested weakly. "Come on, Mia," Dad said, his voice stern. "Don't be selfish. It's your sister's wedding day." I looked around the table, hoping to see someone, anyone, on my side. But all I saw were expectant faces waiting for me to give in, like always. "Mia," Dad said, his voice cold, "either you give the ring to your sister, or we won't pay for your final year of college." The room fell silent. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. But you promised, Grandma," I whispered, tears welling up in my eyes. Emily let out a harsh laugh. "Oh, please. No one cares about promises made to some half-witted old woman." I stood up so fast my chair fell over. "How dare you talk about Grandma like that?" I shouted. "That's enough," Dad roared. "Mia, you have a choice to make. The ring or your education. Decide." I looked at their faces. Dad's anger, Mom's disappointment, Emily's smug satisfaction. In that moment, I knew I had lost again. With shaking hands, I took off the necklace where I kept the key to my safety deposit box. I handed it to Emily. The morning after the ring incident, I cornered Emily in the kitchen. "When exactly is your wedding?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Emily looked up from her coffee, a sly smile playing on her lips. "It's on the 29th. "Why? Planning to ruin it?" I ignored her jab. 2 weeks. I had 2 weeks to get away from this toxic environment. "No," I replied coolly. "I'm going to visit a friend from college. I'll be back in time for the wedding." I packed my bags and left that afternoon, heading to my friend Zoe's place in the next city over. For the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe. Zoe and I spent the week exploring art galleries, hitting up local cafes, and just enjoying each other's company. It was exactly what I needed. But my moment of peace was shattered exactly 1 week later. I was scrolling through my social media feed when I saw it. Photos of Emily's wedding. My sister resplendent in white, the diamond tiara glittering on her head, and my ring sparkling on her finger. The caption read, "Just married. Off to the Maldives with my hunky husband." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. With shaking hands, I dialed Mom's number. "Why didn't you invite me to the wedding?" Emily told me the wrong date. There was a long pause, then Dad's voice came on the line. "Mia, your sister, she didn't want you there. She said you'd ruin her perfect day. We thought it was best not to tell you." I felt like I was going to be sick. "How could you do this to me? I'm your daughter too." "Don't be dramatic," Mom chimed in. "It's not like you really wanted to be there anyway, right?" I hung up, my whole body shaking with anger and hurt. A few days later, I returned home, only to find Emily had also returned from her honeymoon. I walked into the living room to find her, Mom, and Dad huddled together looking at apartment listings. I cleared my throat, and they all looked up. "Don't forget about my tuition," I said, my voice small. "You promised to pay for my last year if I gave Emily the ring." Dad shifted uncomfortably. "Actually, Mia, we've decided to use that money as a down payment on Emily's apartment instead." I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. But you promised. You swore to Grandma." "Plans change," Mom said dismissively. "Emily needs it more. I'm sure you can figure something out." Emily was still laughing, a cruel, mocking sound that made my blood boil. Before I knew what I was doing, I lunged at her, grabbing a fistful of her hair. Emily screeched, and suddenly everyone was shouting. Dad yanked me away, his face red with anger. "That's enough," he roared. "Mia, get out of this house right now." I ran to my room, threw some clothes in a bag, and stormed out, slamming the front door behind me. As I walked away from the house, my heart pounding and my cheeks wet with tears, I realized something. I found myself back at Zoe's place, feeling lost and broken. For days, I barely left her guest room, alternating between crying and staring blankly at the walls. Zoe tried her best to comfort me, but I was inconsolable. A week passed in this haze of despair. Then one morning, as I listlessly checked my email, I saw a message that made my heart stop. Congratulations! You are the winner of the annual art school competition. Your prize includes a full scholarship for your final year of studies. I read the email 3 times, not believing my eyes. Then I let out a scream that brought Zoe running. I thrust my phone at her, happy tears streaming down my face. I won a scholarship. I can finish school. Zoe's eyes widened as she read the email. Then she pulled me into a bone-crushing hug. Oh my God, Bella. This is amazing. For the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. I could finish my degree without my parents' help. I could make my own way. When the new semester started, I threw myself into my studies with renewed vigor. Between my classes and my part-time job at the tattoo parlor, I barely had time to think about my family drama. Months passed, and I slowly started to heal. One day, I was hanging out with my classmate Jake, who worked part-time at a local pawn shop. We were chatting about our day when he mentioned something that caught my attention. You won't believe what happened during my shift today, he said. This girl came in with the most beautiful diamond necklace and ring I've ever seen. Must have been worth a fortune. My heart skipped a beat. What did she look like? I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. Jake described a woman who sounded exactly like Emily. Can you draw the jewelry for me? I asked, my hands shaking slightly. Jake looked confused but complied. As I watched him sketch, my suspicions were confirmed. The necklace was the one Emily had always bragged about, and the ring. It was my grandmother's ring. Jake, I said, my mouth dry. Is there any way you could get me the security footage from the pawn shop? Jake must have seen the desperation in my eyes because he finally nodded. Okay, I'll see what I can do. A few days later, Jake handed me a USB drive. Here, he said, but you didn't get this from me, okay? I nodded gratefully and rushed back to my dorm room. With trembling hands, I plugged in the drive and opened the video file. There was Emily, clear as day, handing over the jewelry. But what made my jaw drop was what happened next. As she turned to leave, a man entered the frame. Emily threw her arms around him, kissing him passionately. It wasn't Richard. I leaned closer to the screen, my heart pounding as the man turned slightly. I gasped. I recognized him. It was Emily's ex-boyfriend, the one our parents had made her break up with because of his criminal connections. I sat back, my mind reeling. Emily had pawned her precious jewelry, including my grandmother's ring, and was apparently cheating on her husband with her criminal ex-boyfriend. Part of me wanted to immediately send this video to my parents, to Richard, to everyone who had ever believed Emily's lies. But another part of me hesitated. This was big, too big to act on impulsively. Months passed, and I thought I'd put my family drama behind me. Then, out of the blue, my phone rang. It was my Aunt Lisa, my mom's sister. Mia, darling, I have wonderful news. She chirped, her voice bubbling with excitement. Your sister is pregnant. Can you believe it? They're having a big announcement party next week. Isn't it exciting? My heart sank. Of course, another family event I hadn't been invited to. That's great, Aunt Lisa. Thanks for letting me know. After hanging up, I sat on my bed, conflicted. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to continue cutting ties with my toxic family. But another part of me, the part that still held on to the video from the pawn shop, knew this might be my chance. I found myself standing outside my parents' house. Cars lined the street, and I could hear laughter and chatter from inside. Taking a deep breath, I walked up to the front door and rang the bell. Mom opened the door, her smile instantly fading when she saw me. "Mia, what are you doing here?" Pushing past her, I walked into the living room. The chatter died down as people noticed me. Emily, standing in the center of the room with Richard, looked like she'd seen a ghost. "What is she doing here?" Emily hissed. Dad's voice boomed through the room. "Mia, get out of this house immediately. You're not welcome here." Confused murmurs rippled through the guests. I saw Richard's parents exchange worried glances. Mom, always one for saving face, plastered on a fake smile. "I'm so sorry, everyone. We've had to distance ourselves from Mia. She's become quite greedy and unworthy of our family name." The room erupted into arguments. Some relatives defended me, while others sided with my parents. I raised my voice. "I have something to say." Gradually, the room quieted down. All eyes were on me. I turned to Emily. "Congratulations on your pregnancy, sis, but I have to ask, why aren't you wearing Grandma's tiara and ring?" Emily's face went pale. Her mother-in-law spoke up. "Now that you mention it, I haven't seen that beautiful ring in a while." "Emily, dear, where is it?" Emily stuttered. I sent them for restoration. They needed cleaning." I nodded slowly, pulling out my phone. "That's interesting, because I have a video here that tells a different story." The color drained from Emily's face as I connected my phone to the TV. The security footage from the pawn shop began to play. There was Emily, clear as day, pawning the jewelry. Then came the moment that made everyone in the room gasp. Emily throwing herself into the arms of a man who was definitely not Richard, kissing him passionately. When the video ended, chaos erupted in the living room. Richard's face contorted with rage and pain as he turned to Emily. "Emily, what is this? Who is that man?" he shouted, his voice cracking. Emily burst into tears, mascara streaming down her face. I can explain." Richard's mother stepped forward, her voice ice cold. "I think we all deserve an explanation, Emily." Richard's father, a stern-looking man, spoke up. "I think we need a paternity test immediately." As accusations flew and tempers flared, I quietly slipped out of the house. I had done what I came to do. The truth was out, and for the first time in years, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Over the next few weeks, the full extent of Emily's deception came to light through the family grapevine. I learned that she had been secretly meeting her ex-boyfriend, the one with criminal connections, behind Richard's back. She had been spending Richard's money on him and even pawned her jewelry to pay off his debts. The paternity test results were the final nail in the coffin. The baby wasn't Richard's. It was her ex-boyfriend's. Richard, understandably devastated, filed for divorce. He sued Emily for a substantial sum, citing emotional damages and financial fraud. Her ex-boyfriend, upon learning of the pregnancy, vanished without a trace, leaving Emily to face the consequences alone. My parents, who had always put Emily on a pedestal, were forced to face the harsh reality of her actions. They had to take out a significant loan to help Emily pay the compensation Richard demanded. Their golden child had fallen from grace, and they were left to pick up the pieces. In a twisted turn of events, they tried to blame me for everything. Mom left a voicemail on my phone, her voice bitter and accusing. "Are you happy now, Mia? You've ruined your sister's life. I hope you're proud of yourself." I didn't reply and erased the note. I could no longer be harmed by their remarks. For my part, I went back to school, devoted myself to my studies, and concentrated on creating the life I had always desired. I changed my email address and phone number, and I stopped talking to my family. At last, the poisonous cycle was ended. 2 years have passed since the fatal day I revealed Emily's falsehoods. Professors and local art critics praised my final piece, which helped me graduate with honors from art college. At the age of 23, I currently work at the city's Harmony Art Gallery. Being surrounded by stunning artwork every day, assisting with exhibition curation, and even planning events for aspiring artists is a dream come true. That's not all, though. In my spare time, I've begun painting, and to my astonishment and joy, many collectors have expressed interest in my work. But I still remember my roots. In my free time, I continue to draw tattoos. It has grown into a treasured pastime that serves as a reminder of my progress. I always smile when I see that some of my designs have even appeared in tattoo publications. The situation with my family is a complex one. A few aunts and cousins who supported me during the aftermath are still in contact with me. I try not to be affected by the family turmoil anymore, but they keep me informed. I've heard that Emily continues to live with our parents. She struggles to raise her child alone because she is unemployed. She is under continual pressure from her parents, who are struggling financially, to get a job and move out. The disputes are frequent and acrimonious. I've reportedly not spoken to Emily or my parents since that day. They made a few initial attempts to get in touch, guilt-tripping texts, irate voicemails. But I remained steadfast in my resolve to sever relations. They eventually gave up trying. On a more positive note, I spent the last year dating a fantastic man named Alex. I met him at a gallery event. He is a graphic designer. He is considerate, encouraging, and most importantly, he recognizes my love of painting. We're discussing moving in together shortly, which is another step in creating the life I desire.